Welcome to Simply Put. My name is Asa Labadie, and I'm joined with my wonderful mother as we have a conversation about her experiences.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
here for it.
All right. So my first question is based on your origin. What was your childhood like, and what kind of home did you grow up in?
My child, you really want to hear this, right? Going all the way back. Okay. My childhood was one where I was basically spoiled, being the only girl in a household. With two older brothers, and then I had one younger brother. But I was spoiled, rotten, right? Always getting my way, that kind of thing. I grew up also in a household. I had a two-parent household, but my mom was a practicing Seventh-day Adventist, but my father, he wasn't. It had some difficulties along the way due to that. Certain things my father upheld, certain things my mom said we definitely not doing, and it had a little conflict. But over and all, we made it.
Okay.
We made it well. Well,
Okay. So, going back to saying how one of your parents was a Seventh-day Adventist and the other one wasn't. So, who or what shaped you most in your early years?
it would more be a who, because from very young, I knew myself going to church. It would have been certain mentors and leaders I had within the church. So there would have been, we had junior church at the time, so that would have been Judith St. Bryce. I had uniform adventurers, pathfinders, that would have been Gideon St. Bryce, and then we had people like Peggy, Joseph, and who would be, inviting you to come to lunch. So you get in that little fellowship, a meal, and, and they will ask you questions, get to know you more, and they made you feel special. So the church itself, for me, it shaped a lot of who I am right now at this current age.
Okay, so you could say the church was your foundation in your early
Definitely,
years.
definitely.
Okay, with time with uniform as well,
Yeah,
you're
at the
playing a big
core,
part.
yes.
Okay. What did faith look like in your family growing up? So, outside of church, more in your family.
All right, so at home, there was never not food. There was always food,
Right.
but it might just have been food for today.
Just enough.
Just enough. Not too sure where tomorrow coming, but we never fussed off, worried, or I'm like, ooh, pull your hair out, where food. It just would always have the next day, the
Right.
jar of oil that would never run out. My mother's always in the kitchen cooking, not too sure, how we're getting some, but some way, somehow, you practically saw where faith came in, that we were a happy household. There was always some tree making some chow, tamarind. So we always had food. So
Okay.
faith started for me very young with that.
Okay. So this other question is, so before I was born, who were you becoming before marriage and children ever entered your life?
I think I was becoming, or I did become, I was heavily involved in uniforms. I was high up in the leadership in terms of adventurers, pathfinders, secretary and master guides, that again, church.
Right.
Then I also was part of a singing group. I was kind
Okay,
of
okay,
fairly
big
known.
singer.
Yes, we cut a couple CDs,
Alright,
original songs. I'll play it for you sometime. Yeah, so I was always doing something, heavily involved in church, trying to minister outside of church. We went to prisons,
okay,
yeah,
okay. So a life full of service.
definitely,
Okay.
definitely that.
So looking back on your life, what parts of your upbringing most formed you to who you are today, specifically? Yeah.
I think because of the mentors that I called earlier, because they were living a life of service and they kind of taught you to mentor. Okay, we are mentoring you now, and then for the next generation, they have to be mentored by someone. So, you kind of shaped you into, okay, and I now have to now take up the mantle and also mentor in whatever form it may come. Sometimes it's not necessarily just uniform or junior church. It could be your youth class. You're just taking on persons, bringing them home, feeding them lunch, getting to know them. So that is what that early upbringing of service, it just carries straight to into my life right now of where it has shaped me into, hey, there's nothing else I can do but now serve the persons that are coming up behind me.
Okay, so always have a full cycle of service.
Yeah, and a full house,
Yeah.
money that I don't have spending. But I would always enjoy it. It's not something that is just natural, and it's something I think God literally placed me here for.
Right. To serve.
Definitely young adults. I
Specifically
prefer
young adults.
specifically young adults.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay. So, my other question is, when did life begin to feel meaningful or purposeful to you?
It always did.
It always
Yeah, it was never meaningless. I was always doing something.
service.
Always, whether it mean even before service started, I was always doing something in Pathfinder. So I was learning, evolving, growing, becoming better. And then service came on as well. So you always had a purpose and a plan, learning to do secretarial work in master guides. That kind of built my organizational skills a lot, writing letters. So all those things shaped me into,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay. How did your faith develop over time, naturally, suddenly, or through struggle?
Probably a little of all, but majorly probably through struggle.
Right. Okay.
Because I kind of grew up independent, Yeah. From very early on, I was doing things on my own, going where I want, kind of thing. So I always had a very headstrong in terms of I could do this,
Right.
but then recognizing the shortcomings and hearing the stories in the Bible about faith, and questioning now. So I have to now rely on this God and ask him questions about which maxi to take, what clothes to wear, which way to go in life. So it developed because of
Okay.
true struggle, somewhat through death as well. That was a little painful in recognizing that you'll never see this loved one again, but you have this hope and this belief that the next life they will be there because they gave themselves to Christ, kind of thing. So yeah, so true struggle, having to realize the pain and the hurt of of your loved one not being around, but you have the belief that there's a second life after this one.
Okay, so going through the struggle, but without letting it affect you negatively
Correct. Yeah, having
in the
it's an
long term.
attitude. Yes, having a
Yeah.
positive attitude. Correct.
I like that answer. So, were there moments that changed how you understood God or yourself?
Yes, there were. Um, I think probably when I started working, and and I would probably spend more than I had until I get the next paycheck. And even though I was foolish to do that, I never had to borrow and beg, really. The money always somehow came until I could recognize, Alicia, even though God is providing for you continuously before the next paycheck comes, you just have to learn to do a little better, budgeting and sticking to it and that kind of thing, but
Do your
living on your own.
part.
Correct.
Yeah.
I had my part, even though God was definitely carrying me through. I now had to be the adult and stop certain things and stay within my budget.
All right. Nice. How did becoming a parent reshape your sense of purpose?
Even though you would have think like mentoring young persons as a responsibility, but this is one that God specifically gave to me. You, and being the child that you were definitely changed me. I had to be on my P's and Q's. I had to know all these answers because you asked a lot of questions. A lot of questions. So sometimes a little trickery would take place. I would give you some vague answers and let you run with that, and then run back and Google, look up dictionary something to get the answers, and then come back all learned and I know the answer to that, and then give you the correct answer. You always had to be knowing because you had a lot of questions, which was great. Never discourage that. So patience, yes, because you had 110 questions. Why, what, when.
I think you got me a book on that actually.
Yes, so it taught me to be a little resilient, to find ways, and then also I had to be a little different in terms of worship. When we had worship, I had to be a little creative. We would have concerts when we worship, and we would have pop quiz, even communion we used to have, so it became very creative in terms of trying to teach you the Bible and the Bible stories, that I had to make it creative for you to be more impactful to you. So, yeah,
Yeah.
resilient, innovative.
So, what do you believe God has been forming in you through your life so far?
It would probably be more patience. Because sometimes you would have a certain perspective, a certain way of thinking, and other persons think differently,
True, very true.
So you have to be a little more respectful and understanding of getting a different perspective of life, and then be willing to humbly say, that makes sense. And yeah, that was cool. It was nice to hear what you had to say. So sometimes, you think because you have been here on this earth quite a number of years now, that you think that sometimes you may know it all, but you need to dress back, listen to what somebody else has to say, and be understanding. So not hasty and be patient. Definitely developing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Getting there.
point of views and perspectives really do change how you
Definitely.
think.
Yeah.
All
Especially
right.
as I get older.
What values have guided the way you try to live your life?
It would probably be no man is an island.
Okay.
That to make one thing work, we need all hands on deck, and not just you alone can do it.
Teamwork
Yes,
makes
you
the
don't
dream
have
work.
all the you don't have all the answers. You need to rely on other person. Be humble enough to ask for the assistance as well. Yeah.
Okay, so you see, humility.
Yes.
Humility.
Getting there.
All right then. How has faith shaped the way you make decisions or face challenges?
Definitely need. Yeah. I guess it goes back again in recognizing you don't have all the answers, and that this God wants you to come to Him,
To be vulnerable.
yeah, to open up yourself, and you know um not just the small things, what maxi to take, what clothes to wear, is every single facet of your life. He wants you to rely on Him. You're not seeing the end of the road, but rely on Him,
Yeah, I think
for
that's
it.
what faith is about at the
Yeah,
end of the
yeah.
day. All right. What did you hope to model or pass on as a parent?
It would be the values of seeking God first.
Okay.
And then also, you're not here for yourself. The youth class, I always start off with that. You're not here for yourself. I look at it as if I see about your needs, and then you see about my needs or somebody else's needs. You're not being selfish, you're sharing, but all the needs are being met.
True.
So it's not about you. If everybody help each other, then the actually world will be self-sufficient. It will be fine. It will work how it's supposed to work. But when everybody want to hold and hoard for themselves, that is where,
Chaos.
correct. So yeah. So I think sharing and realizing it's not about selfishness, it's about selfless
Less.
giving.
Okay,
You
okay.
learn that from me?
Yeah, definitely. Time and energy you put into finances, money. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. How did parenting stretch your patience, humility, or trust in God?
Yeah, it had to, because you have a child that you have no manual for, specifically Asa Labadie. I don't have a manual for to raise you. You know, you didn't want to be inside at all. I had to, figure out what does the child want when he cries, and you had to, you wanted to be outside. So it was a lot of asking God, and tell me, let me figure this out. What does he want at this point in time? So it was a lot of patience. It was a lot of just relying on your own instincts, I guess, in a sense,
Yeah.
motherly instincts to grow you up. There was another end part to the question.
Or trust in God?
Oh, you definitely had a trust in God, because remember, you are doing your limited part in
Right.
parenting
As a human.
as a human. And then you now have to say, God, I have parented this child for certain amount of years. There are values and traditions and things instilled into this person. Now I have to send him out into the wild and let him live and hope that, he holds on to those values. Actually, so far, I haven't disappointed. I have to say that. He ain't doing too bad.
Good to know. All right. What lessons did you learn the hard way?
It would be relying on God.
Relying on God
Yeah.
again. Okay.
Because as again, it all comes back being self-sufficient, being on my own
Independence.
for a while, being independent, that you think you know all the answers and you think you could do it without God, and not realizing, okay, I messed up here. I had to learn the hard way. After now, okay, God, where you want to go from here now? Kind of
Okay,
thing.
so you could say you're a bit stubborn.
I wouldn't say that. But if that's what you see.
All right. So my other question here is, how how do you think about the future, both in this life and beyond?
This life, what, for me or for the persons that I mentor? For me, I
For
think
you.
my biggest concern for beyond would be that I live this life, but I don't live eternally in the next. That you think you would have accomplished, you think all the things you would have done, you would have worked all these years, you would have spoken to all these children, these young adults for all these years, but then to what end? That you lose your own life, the ultimate. That's one thing. And also I was told that I can't, from you, that I can't die at until 85. I have to live until at least 85 because you still have me here for a reason.
And a purpose.
It's a purpose, right? So that's one. But I think the ultimate thing is my concern would be that I have lived this life now, but I don't get to see it to completion, which is in the next life with Jesus Christ.
Okay. And what about your legacy? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
To serve the next generation.
This is the next generation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because somebody would have taught me. I don't know why, what they saw in us, why somebody would why would somebody give all their time, energy, and money? Because I remember Gideon spending pizza on us, buying pizza for us when we do march pass and when we won fancy drill and that kind of thing. But why would someone want to do all that for somebody that is not their own? And now I can now acknowledge, I could see why, because you're seeing the growth and development of persons that are under you, and now you want to pass that on to the next generation, as you want them to have persons to look up to. That they have questions that they could come to you.
Right.
They feel comfortable enough to, so that they know themselves could pass on as well. Okay. So it's just a handing over.
Yeah. All right. What gives you hope at this stage of your life?
The hope, I think, would be seeing you grow to the person that you are now. So I'm hopeful that throughout all the midst of the evil and the sin in this world, that there are persons that I would speak with, and that you could see, hey, okay, there's still a light. It's not all bad as
Doom
yet.
and gloom.
Correct. That there's still hope, that persons are here to carry it on, that the positivity, that the sharing, the love of what God wants for us to do is still there, because you just see it in them, and I have that hope. And I hope that you yourself will be able to carry it on as well.
I shall try my best, or do my best.
Nice to know.
What do you hope your children carry forward from your life and faith?
I think it would be not to be happy, but to be joyous.
That is a statement.
Joy is something that actually comes from a higher power, which for us is God. Is that happiness that you have with God, that so it's a light that people see in you that will draw persons to you to come and want to talk, to get to know you, and ultimately get them closer to Christ.
Okay.
So they would see the light, and then you pass on that light as well.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay. Keep it going.
Yes.
Keep it going. All right. What do you know now that you wish you understood earlier? Through your experiences.
I think I probably answered it before, which was just not relying on others.
Okay.
Questioning, finding out, going to persons when you have issues. I think that would be it. Sometimes, pride, not being humble. You don't want to bother people too much. Another thing as well is that sometimes those same people that you rely on, sometimes they would disappoint you, and not to take it personal. That's a major one for me. Why? Because they're going through their own stuff as well. They have their own doubts, their own, so sometimes you rely on one person today and you go back tomorrow. That's okay, that used to hurt me a lot, not sometimes thinking that I could go to this person, the consistency, but they have their own. So acknowledging that they too have their own issues going on, and, and probably I could actually be there for them as well.
Yeah, to help them.
To help them,
in their time of need.
You don't always think that leaders, sometimes the perception is that leaders are always strong and they don't have their moments of doubt. They don't have their moments of not having clarity. But sometimes we too need to feel that, hey, you could come and see me,
Right.
and probably uplift me as well sometimes in my doubtful moments. I think that is a major thing when you have persons who serve, that sometimes people think that they need to be served as well.
Okay. Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly.
It's a filling of the
filling.
cup.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, as we come to a close, I would like you to finish this sentence. Faith, simply put, is ...
Faith, simply put, is acting on truth even though you haven't seen it yet. Is actually somebody telling you something that they would have experienced. You probably haven't seen it yet, but the trust and belief of what it is they are telling you, I believe it and I'm acting on that truth, and eventually it will be revealed. So acting before you actually see it.
I guess that's encapsulates what faith is, basically.
Yes. Well, for me, and I hope you and persons listening as well, that they would, be able to understand and faith, have that, start living that faith. Because we read about it so much, especially persons who grew up in church. We read about all the persons who had faith, but then when sometimes it comes to yourself, it's hard to actually, live it out. But we need to start doing it. Make it personal. Stop trusting yourself. Trust in God. Listen to Him. Abide by Him. And everything, it may not go smooth. That's the thing. He will never, ever stop you from going through the trials of this
struggles.
Life be lifing. But knowing that someone having that person there at your side, trusting that God will guide you through and hold your hand and make it a little easier, is what I think encapsulates what faith is.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for your many words of wisdom.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I'd like to thank you for having us here on Simply Put.